Hey there and welcome back to Rimworld. My name is Pete and today we complete another episode of our Rimworld Extreme Desert Challenge. In the last episode we ascended Steak to knighthood and we also welcomed back our good friend Synodanis, who we will likely see leave again today as her quest expires in a few days. Now, because Steak is now a knight, we can now choose a permit, and thank you very much for voicing your opinions on this in the comments of the last episode, but we are instead going with a suggestion here that was actually made several times, as at this point we are not choosing anything. This leaves us with the full list to choose from until we actually need help, and we don't need to commit to, let's say, the aerodrone strike or the transport shuttle right now. And so, with a good amount of flexibility, we are jumping into today's episode, and with the remains of a hard-fought battle still decorating our kill zone, we can see that our prisoner is suffering from heatstroke. She is naked after all, so this should not come as too much of a surprise. Still, her situation is about to get a lot worse, because while Alistair is burning bodies and Redhawk is smelting some steel weapons, and while Steak is actually delivering some heat-protective headgear, yes, it is time for another prison break. And I have learned from last episode's shenanigans, so we are getting Steak out of here, and instead the man with the hand talon is sent in to take care of the issue. And well, I guess in the steakhouse it's a toe for a toe. After Jake lost a toe in the last episode, today Edmo takes revenge. He cuts off one of our prisoners' toes as well. And well, even Redhawk can't fix that. Steak, by the way, only suffered a few small bruises, so there is no need to worry about him at all. Very surprisingly then, after just being struck down, our prisoner actually decides to join the steakhouse. Looks like Redhawk made one hell of a pitch to her. In any case, we are now up to colonist number 7. And just like the previous 6, she will also receive a name from the list of patrons in the naming rights tier and above. And the name that was randomly chosen is Pollyanna. So congratulations and welcome to the steakhouse. We sure hope that you enjoy your time with the colony. Now, regarding her role with the colony, I could see her take some gardening work off of Edmo, who could then focus a bit more on crafting, and she could also become our primary doctor, even though Redhawk should probably keep working in that field as well. And so, with Steak and Pollyanna making a hopefully speedy recovery in our hospital, the evening rolls around and we can see the raid has been mostly cleaned up already. There were unfortunately no survivors, at least not after we have spent a few hours burning the bodies of those who died first. During the night then, Steak is the first to be back up on his feet, and even though Pollyanna is far from fully healed, she can take a few steps herself shortly after, and of course our first priority is to get her dressed. No duster yet for her, we'll get on that in a moment. For now, the most important thing is that she should be safe from making her heatstroke situation any worse. And while some of our colonists are hauling all those bows into one temporary stockpile, we can see that Edmo is indeed making a duster for Pollyanna right away. Also, I completely forgot to let the animals back outside after the raid, which would have certainly helped with the hauling. The duster, meanwhile, is quickly finished, Pollyanna can put it on, and with a temperature resistance of 52 degrees Celsius, she should be fine even in case of a heatwave. Now, you might be wondering why we brought all those bows up here, and that is because we want to get rid of them. Since we can't dismantle them for materials, the next best thing is to trade them, and because they are a bit much to carry, we're building a transport pod for this. However, we are not launching that pod today. The return trip will still be on foot, and loading the pod also takes a while, and I don't want anyone to spend a night out in the desert if that can be avoided. Instead, we are collecting a bit more marble, which I am, by the way, not using as the flooring material because of its beauty, which as a floor tile it doesn't actually have, but simply because I started doing so at one point, and I like things to look consistent throughout the base. This badge, however, is not needed for any new construction projects, but simply for Steak's next art installation, which will eventually decorate Alistair's bedroom, as he is currently the only one with less than impressive chambers. Edmo, meanwhile, is making a ton of simple meals, which will actually remain the food of choice for Steak, even though his rank of Knight technically demands fine meals. He seems to be flexible about this though, and does not get any mood penalties from eating the simple stuff. Cynodanus, on the other hand, is a bit more picky, but we have plenty of eggs to cook up something decent for her. Eventually then, another night sets in and the colony heads off to bed, and soon after we receive our first quest of the episode. Now, this one comes with a lengthy description, so feel free to pause and read for yourself. The essence of it is rather simple though. To complete the quest, we need to house 5 prisoners for 17 hours, so only for a very short period of time, but the prisoners are sick with blood rot. Now, because we only need to take care of them for less than a day, I don't think that should become too much of an issue. However, they have enemies on their heels, and that is where this quest could get spicy. If I have counted correctly, we should expect 2 27-person raids during the 17-hour time period, and we are unfortunately dealing with pirates who possess advanced weaponry. Now, to even the odds a little, we will receive the help of 7 Imperial troopers, but still I am very sure that this quest will end up in a bloodbath one way or another. The only question is, do you think we can come out on top? Meanwhile, the rewards here are actually not that great, considering the risks we would be taking, but keep in mind that our enemies will likely also drop a good amount of loot, so I'm not too worried about receiving a fair payment here. In the end though, this is a decision that I would once again like to make with all of you, so let me know in the comments what you think about it. Again, 17 hours is really not a long time, but there is a realistic chance that we will not be done fighting the first raid once the second group arrives, but maybe it is time to put our combat prowess to the test, and let's not forget that we still have that permit up our sleeve, which could come in handy as well. Now, while we weigh our options, it is time for another hay harvest, and with the next morning slowly approaching, we can then also load our transport pod. We will not be trading with the Empire just yet, so our passenger will be Red Hawk, alongside the 2 Labrador puppies that we still haven't been able to sell, and then a whole bunch of supplies, all the drugs we don't need, and of course as many bows as the pod can carry. All of that will now be loaded, and we should be ready for takeoff in a few moments. Alright, nothing exciting happens in the meantime, so here we are ready to launch. Our destination is, as usual, the Black Troska tribe, who are the only settlement in the vicinity that is actually interested in purchasing a bunch of archaic weapons. The journey is swiftly completed, and selling everything nets us about 1,800 silver. Most of it, of course, comes from the flake. With that money, we are now purchasing some components that I honestly did not even expect to find here, and that is unfortunately all we can do. As a tribe, the people here are not exactly swimming in trade goods. Back in the base, another Thrumbo is being butchered as Edmo begins another kibble-making session, and in the afternoon, Steak also finishes his sculpture. With the title of Detached Monster, this one shows a mesa and a settlement near a gorge. Not really anything that connects to the steakhouse or its inhabitants, but who knows, maybe Steak just wanted to do something different this time. In either case, accompanied by the great news that Pollyanna has made a full recovery, apart from that toe of course, the sculpture finds a new home inside Alistair's bedroom, and a short while later our colony is reunited again as Red Hawk safely arrives back home before the night sets. That means she can spend the night in her own bed, something that Pollyanna can unfortunately not say for herself. The room that she will eventually occupy is currently still being used by our guest Cynodanus, and our quest objective is to keep her happy, so Pollyanna will have to sleep in the common room for one night. Thankfully, we have a good quality bedroll for her, so it won't be that uncomfortable. That is, if she can ignore the nightly visitors. Speaking of which, I would say we now have bigger concerns than a shortage of beds, as a large group of yaks have arrived, and they are angry. However, they are also not the fastest animals out there, and I think with 7 colonists and a guest who is at least willing to fight, we have a good number of combatants to be able to meet our foes straight on. As a matter of fact, we are even leaving Troy and Alistair behind. Troy needs to keep researching after all, and Alistair is, well, not the most useful in a fight. And just like last episode, right as we fire our first volley, a trade caravan picks that exact moment in time to appear on the map as well, luckily on the opposite side, but I fear that we're once again going to see some casualties here if our guests don't play it smart. Our 6-person shooting squad, meanwhile, shows good stopping power and also moves over to the left side of the base now. If the visitors insist on having bad timing, we might as well attempt to strike a deal in the middle of the fight. This allows us to sell a few more weapons that did not fit in the pot earlier. Other than that, however, nothing else is bought or sold. And while our guests, at least for the moment, enter the safety of our base, we take on the yak herd, and well, what can I say? Things are going pretty smooth here. That is, until Randy decides to up the challenge a little. Yes, the herd of manhunting yaks is now being reinforced by manhunting iguanas, which might actually be a little more difficult to take out, as they are much smaller and therefore harder to hit. But for the time being, we are holding our position, which is something that cannot exactly be said for our visitors. Instead of waiting out the attack inside of our base, they decided to participate, and as you can see, there is room for improvement. Our small squad, meanwhile, is now meeting the bulk of the iguana group. The yaks have been mostly taken out already, or they're occupied with the caravan, and we are employing a bit of a kiting strategy at this point. For now, there are just a few iguanas too many to be able to hold a steady position. As we bring our group around to the east side of the base, we can also see that our guests have indeed suffered a few casualties, but luckily we did not receive any faction relation penalties for it, so I guess there is not much to complain about. Eventually then, Cynodanus grows bored of the shooting and heads back inside. Well, what can we do? The mood is essential for the quest after all. Edmo is also a bit too slow to be useful in our strategy, but even with only 4 hunters we are making good, albeit somewhat slow progress. A few stragglers have actually also wandered into our kill box, where our turrets have taken care of them, and so in the late morning hours we are firing the last few shots and can ultimately bring everyone back inside without so much as a scratch. And maybe to celebrate the occasion, Alistair is now throwing a party. Thanks to the recently placed party spot, he also does that in the right location, so our colony comes together once more to hang out and have a good time. This party could, by the way, also very well be the farewell for Cynodanus, as her shuttle will arrive later today, and so the completion of her quest is getting closer. During the evening, the few animal corpses that are still usable are either frozen or butchered, and then, late at night, with the rest of the steakhouse already fast asleep, Cynodanus' shuttle arrives to pick her up. The machine pistol we gave her for the fight will of course remain with us, and so we can now send her on her way back home. This completes the quest and gives a small amount of honor to Red Hawk, who now receives the title of Freeholder. For the moment though, that is rather meaningless. On the next morning, our construction squad is already busy repairing some of the damage that our turrets caused, but more importantly, we also have some more wood coming in, so we can finally continue work on our common room. And we are going all out with a nice large billiards table, one of the most powerful recreation items in the game, and it actually also boosts the player's shooting skill, albeit at a barely noticeable rate. Since it is in all aspects superior to the hoopstone ring, we can now dismantle that as well and make the space look a little cleaner. In the afternoon then, it is time for flake production and stone cutting, and in the evening we can see how little time we actually have to spend on field work now that a good number of our colonists are proficient with plants. A short while later, Alistair and Pollyanna are also enjoying a game of billiards, but Alistair has one more job to do today, and that is to install a vent inside of our kitchen. The electric stove is currently increasing temperatures in here quite a bit, and that actually causes the work speed to drop because it's simply getting too hot. A simple vent to the outside can take care of that problem easily though. On the following morning, Alistair can also do some advanced corpse cleanup by simply shooting his incendiary launcher at the pile of yaks a few times. That will quickly burn their corpses and we don't have to haul every single one of them to the incinerator. And we can actually do that a few times all around the base, that way Alistair gets to have some fun. Back inside, meanwhile, we have enough wood to also build a poker table now, which complements the dexterity challenges of the billiards table nicely and ensures that we have a good variety of recreation options available. At this point, I also want to briefly talk about the heritage situation, as I think it's rather clear at this point that the majority of you would like to see Red Hawk as Steak's heir. However, giving her that privilege and taking it away from Jake, that is a little more complicated than it seems. Sure, we can simply call the Empire and request the change, but to actually make the change, we have to build a monument to consecrate the new inheritance. And the material and size requirements for that monument could actually be substantial, as I believe they are based on colony wealth, so a simple 2x2 statue with some columns will likely not suffice. Still, we are going to make that change, I think I owe you that much, perhaps even as early as the next episode, but not today. By the way, if you feel like someone else should receive the honors, I have actually made a poll for that a few days ago, and I'll leave a link to it down below, so you can cast your vote if you haven't done so already. Now, in the evening, we are constructing yet another transport pod, and this time we are making our first trade with the Empire. That is why Steak will be the pilot and he'll only take a handful of items with him. The only things we're actually planning to sell are the flake and the thrombohorns. Loading the pod is then quickly taken care of and we are ready to launch once more, and this time we will visit the Imperial settlement of Anmet. Upon his arrival, Steak can quickly offer all of his wares, which is good enough for almost 1,900 silver. In exchange, we will now purchase 2 advanced components, we'll need those very soon, but no other fancy items, even though a few of them here seem very intriguing. Instead, we are just grabbing a few regular components as well, and then it's time for the return trip, on foot of course, so he will spend the night in the desert, going back to his roots, I guess. And the night passes by uneventfully, both for Steak as well as for the steakhouse, and spending a night out in the wild even had a positive effect on our colony founder, as he experiences an inspiration and will now have increased odds of successfully completing a surgery for the next 8 days. The only issue might be to find a suitable candidate, but knowing Rimworld, I'm sure that an opportunity will arise sooner or later. In the early morning, Troy then finally unlocks Fabrication, something I have been waiting for the entire episode, and we are now finally able to make our own components. That is also why we sent Steak out to buy advanced components, as those are required to build the fabrication bench. Now, our next research project is going to be rather simple in comparison, as Troy will unlock carpet making next. That hole underneath our table is becoming a bit of an eyesore and needs to be filled, I think. We also have another construction project lined up, as we can slowly start fortifying the perimeter of our base with sturdy granite. I have put the plans for this down quite some time ago, and I think now is a good time to get started on what will definitely be a lengthy endeavor. Alistair and Red Hawk can also spend a few more hours mining, right next to the Ancient Danger by the way, a place that I think we will explore very soon, but not today. In the evening, shortly before Steak can return, we receive another quest to house a group of refugees, and this is one of those hard-to-judge quests. We don't really know what their true intentions are, and they might join us or betray us or something in the middle, so we are not making a decision on this right now. Once again though, let me know what you think about it, and perhaps we'll take them in next time. Just before the night fully sets across the desert, Steak then returns home, Labrador Noosa also gives birth once more, and just as Alistair is about to start constructing the fabrication bench, Pollyanna suffers a mental break. Now, she's only going to hide in her room, so it's nothing dangerous, but that is the downside of her low mental break threshold. I think we'll have to live with that from time to time. The fabrication bench, meanwhile, is ready to go shortly after. This is definitely not its final place in the colony, but for now, having it close to our steel supply for quick component production definitely makes sense. And with that small technological milestone, I think we have reached a good point to make the cut for today. We have made some good progress, the colony saw some action, and there are quite a few things to do in the near future, so I'm sure the next episode is once again going to be an exciting one. Now, it has become a bit of a regularity to share some fan art with you at the end of these videos, and today is no exception. We are starting things off with our good friend Tofu and a lovely rendition of Cynodanus, as well as of her arch-nemesis the goose waiting to strike once more. Cynodanus is also the subject of this next piece of artwork sent in by Tony Murchison, in which we can see our guest somewhat reluctantly participate in the defense of the steakhouse, a scene that I think took place not once but actually twice during her stay with us. So a big thank you to both of you, and if you also have some fan art to send in, then feel free to contact me over on Facebook. I also have a Twitter that I check about once a month or so, or if you want to send me something with a higher resolution, then send me an email to pete@petecomplete.com. And that's it for today. As always, I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, then I would be very happy if you could leave a thumbs up. If you like what I'm doing and want to support me and my channel further, then you can go ahead and subscribe if you haven't done so already, grab some merch over on shop.petecomplete.com, or check out and maybe even pledge to the Pete Complete Patreon. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you next time. Cheers.